All right, folks. Chris, mute your phone. Not your mic. I now call the Champaign County Board Environment and Land Use Committee meeting to order at 6:32. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Rogers. Yes. Farney.
Present.
Locke. Here. Rodriguez. Storr.
Present. Here.
Here. All right, we have a quorum, and with one member absent, Emily called in with a sick car. I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda with addendum. Moved by Jamala, second. Second by John. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Those are approved. We have before us the minutes of January 9th, 2025 regular meeting. I'd entertain a motion to approve those. I'm going to give it to Jennifer and then Aaron. All right. Jennifer and Aaron, any changes, corrections, comments, or compliments?
I'll just say that I found the minutes to be very thorough, detailed, and I applaud the minute recorder and reporter.
All right. Thank you, Chris. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? The minutes are approved. I have one tag for public participation. I now call Susan Monty, who knows the drill.
Hello. I'm here to encourage ELUC to recommend to the county board that they use the seal on an information fact sheet about a household hazardous waste extended producer responsibility piece of legislation that's currently before the Illinois General Assembly. We'll be lobbying for passage of this, going to encourage senators and our representatives to be co-sponsors of this bill. It's a game changer for Illinois, should it be passed this year. So it will essentially shift the costs of operations for household hazardous waste collection to manufacturers of those products that are sold in Illinois. Only one other state has this in effect, and that's Vermont. It's widespread in Canada and in Europe already, but this would be just so wonderful. So I'll stick around for the discussion in case I can offer any additional information. I'll just additionally say that extended producer responsibility is a format that has been very successful in addressing other problematic products such as consumer electronics. A bill was passed in 2017. Paint passed in 2023. Portable batteries passed just last year. And now household hazardous waste. So this would be just wonderful. That's all I'll say.
All right, thank you. I don't have any other slips tonight, so I'm going to close public participation and open up item 6, communications. Does anyone on the board have communications for us? We always look your direction.
None.
Okay. All right, communications is closed. Item 7, new business items for information only. This is the proposed approach to preparing a draft comprehensive zoning ordinance text amendment to address the concerns about carbon sequestration in the county. On your desk, Chris sent this. This is sort of a draft of maybe what we could look at doing. Chris put this together. This one's yours, right, Chris?
It was substantially improved by John Hall.
Okay, so this is a collaborative effort of a board member and staff. Thank you, John, for dressing up the edges on that. So we're just going to discuss things tonight. I suggest we take this home and take a good look at it for the next meeting. I know Chris gave me a call and wanted to know what we should call it. He thought task force sounded a little too military, but I think that that's pretty standard lingo for this kind of thing, and maybe kind of gives a feel for the importance of it. So I'm happy with that, if you're now happy with that kind of thing. One of the things, I haven't had time to read this yet, but I thought about this, was I know we don't have power over other counties, but I think in sort of our mandate should be a statement that says that we want to heavily encourage both board members reaching out and that Champaign County, maybe with a letter or something to counties over the aquifer, try to engage other counties in the same sort of moratorium on carbon sequestration under the aquifer or near the aquifer. So that it's not just, we could do the whole county of Champaign and step over the border and somebody could put a, right now. And so, I want to do everything we can as a board and as a county board to encourage other counties to do the same. And I think maybe, like we're proposing to do later on, that Susan talked about, something with our letterhead on it, something from the board members, maybe from the whole board, to encourage that. And I'd like to see that in these guidelines as one of the goals of this during the year, not at the end of this year, but during the year, to have that, something that maybe we already have on board and going out as soon as possible. So, any other direction for John? Any input from people? I assume there will be more next meeting, when we get a chance to digest this. But anything tonight, Aaron?
Thanks. As we said last at the full board meeting, there's a lot of other water-bearing strata layers besides just the Muhammad Aquifer. The Muhammad Aquifer is the big one, obviously, but they all need to be protected, in my opinion. There's parts of this county it's not the easiest to find water. You can pretty much find water, I think, anywhere in the county, but there's some places it's hard. You have to maybe drill deep, and you're not going to necessarily find water at your first hole that you drill if you're trying to find a well. The idea, I realize why the Muhammad Aquifer maybe gets the big, it's the draw, you could say. It's this shining example. We want to protect that because it serves so many people. But if it's allowed out in the rest of under all the rest of the areas where there's water above it that people draw water from to use and drink, okay, well, say when and if those would get polluted, the next thing you know, like say the areas of this county that aren't directly over the aquifer, they would get polluted, but the aquifer is still clean. Well, where's the water going to come from probably that would displace that undrinkable water? The Muhammad Aquifer. It's the closest. The Muhammad Aquifer is already getting, we're already drawing that cone down of depression. At times we're causing the aquifer to flow backwards from its natural flow, they've determined. So the idea that we would just keep, now we've got so many people to now put onto the Muhammad Aquifer and keep sucking from that aquifer. Granted, it hasn't gone dry yet, but there's aquifers out west that have, and we don't need to be doing that either. So the idea, I realize again that Muhammad Aquifer is the big one you can point to, but it all needs to be protected. I do agree with you, Eric, that other counties we should maybe try and make some kind of a statement for other counties. But and I skimming through this before the meeting started, I see it does mention other strata and stuff, so that's great. But I do want to make sure that the other strata and water-bearing formations underneath besides the Muhammad Aquifer, don't get forgotten. Because, water. There is the saying, I'm sure pretty much everybody's heard it, water's for fighting, whiskey's for drinking. I think they usually put it that backwards maybe. Whiskey's for drinking, water's for fighting. Well, that's been around a long time. It largely, I think, comes from out west, but it's largely true. Without water, nothing lives. So it all needs to be protected, and yeah, we just want to make sure that the Muhammad Aquifer isn't the only thing we're protecting, that we need to protect all of it. Thanks.
So would you like to see, well, obviously you want to see a countywide moratorium on it in Champaign County, and
Personally, I would, yeah. And personally, although if you could get past at the state level, but
yeah, yeah. And do we want to put something about the state legislature in here? I mean, I know that's kind of like yelling at a tree, but, is it something we want to point out specifically? Is it in there already and I didn't look at it yet? Do we think we want to add that, I'm sure we want to send something to the state to encourage our local representatives to work on a statewide moratorium. But should we codify that?
I think our local representatives in both the House and our local senators would probably be receptive to that. As far as the full assemblies, the House and the Senate in Springfield, I don't know how overall receptive they would be. Personally, I'm not sure how it would work in. I mean, I don't know if we put that. Obviously, that wouldn't necessarily be part of our ordinance, I wouldn't think. But the committee, I guess, if they wanted to, this task force, if they wanted to maybe put some kind of a statement together that would encourage the state to do so, I personally wouldn't have a problem with it. It may or may not fall on deaf ears in Springfield, but you don't get anywhere if you don't try.
I think one of the difficulties is where there's money involved. And I don't know how we fight that. I don't know. Obviously, right now, if you have the money, you win. That's just the way the game is being played. And I think some of our watch people may have identified where they're sort of targeting right now, this money. Chris?
I don't know if I could kind of speak to your last question, but I'd like to address Aaron Esri's points. And one of the things that I did while I was working at the university was study the very aquifers that you're describing. And I'd be glad to pass along a professional paper. I think it goes something along the line of close-range photogrammetry and terrestrial LiDAR scanning of outcrops along the middle fork of the Vermilion River. And I can even include some additional stuff about hyperspectral scanning that I can almost guarantee will help you solve any insomnia that you're fighting. But no, more seriously, that was something in my mind, and that was kind of exactly why I put some of that wording in the document. And we don't even have to go to out west to look for aquifers drying up. We have Joliet, Illinois, which is facing a water crisis and has had to negotiate to buy water from the city of Chicago because their aquifer is nearly depleted. There are 8 other cities up in the Chicago metropolitan area that are facing a similar problem, and they will be without water in 20 years because they've depleted 2 aquifers up in the Chicago suburbs. So, and these are all things that are on my mind, and as Chair Thorsland mentioned, this might, I think this might be what we do here with the talent and expertise that we have in our own county can kind of draft a template that could be used in the east central Illinois, where we have not only the Mahomet Aquifer, but it depend on the smaller glacial aquifers outside that large sole source aquifer. And to my thinking, those small aquifers are kind of hard to define, but they are, as you rightly note, sole source for those areas. So I take all that in consideration, but I think that we need to kind of go through the process of documenting and drafting the best guidance that we can, so that we can kind of advise our brethren in Springfield to, and sisters in Springfield to help protect our water resources.
Thank you, Chris. Just thinking of your template statement, we have now a template of a 12-month moratorium, our ordinance. What is the board's thought of, and I promised I would only call you this a few more times, the chair of the county board with a letterhead from this committee or from the full board that everyone signs on to send, here's what we did in Champaign County. Would your board consider the same 12-month moratorium to, while we develop this task force and maybe come up with guidelines for a more permanent thing? Is that something you'd be willing to organize, and maybe we could have it at the full board meeting? Is that possible?
I have some medical things that will prevent me from getting that together
Okay.
in time for the full board.
Can we delegate?
I can delegate, and we can, if you do the draft, and then we can, yeah, absolutely, we can.
Okay. I mean, we
But
basically
I
have
support us having that.
this to
Yeah.
hand it to them right here.
Yeah,
you know,
perfect, yeah.
With a cover letter that says, here's what we did. It really seriously encourage you doing the same while we sort this out. So
I support that.
that would be great, and I appreciate that. Looking at sort of the missions, not the mission statement, but this formation of a task force, Chris has got some ideas here. 10 people, a couple of representatives from here, from the water survey, from the geological survey. It'd be wonderful if we could get one of our state reps, either in the House or Senate, to be part of it. I don't know that that would be successful, but we could try. Do you have people in mind?
It happens that I do, but I did not wish to put their names forward until we formally established a task force, and then we can kind of discuss appointing people to that.
Okay, well, I don't think we should waste a whole lot of time in that. I know everyone hasn't read all of this and pondered it, but one thing we could maybe work on tonight is to give staff some guidance in something that we could work on next month that formalizes this task force, how many people are on it, and then we could start to propagate it with names. And maybe John's got some input to that. Do you have an idea how you would want to put that together? Chris, do you have an idea of how you'd want to put that together? Do you want to work with John?
I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, that would be great. Is that something you think maybe we could do by next month?
The question I have is, can we ask people if they want to be on a task force before the county board has authorized a task force?
Okay, yeah.
And this is not on the agenda. This wasn't to go to county board this month to
No.
establish a task force. So that would seem to be a logical thing to do next month. And then, once the county board signs on to that, I think we do have a good list of names to run down.
Okay, well, let's make that a goal to have something that we can pass on to the county board next month that organizes this task force with some, specificity, some brackets on it. And then we could vote on that and pass that along. And so if you read this and you have ideas, then, email Chris or email John and let them know so that can be incorporated in. We can't have a group email, don't reply all, but you can certainly send in suggestions with everybody on it and just don't everyone answer. That's perfectly okay. And I think that would be a really good thing to do. And then if we could get the board to pass that, that would be the March meeting. Then we could get this task force put together and give them, what kind of timeline are you thinking about? Like a 6-month thing? Shorter, longer?
I think that, if we try to cram things in a specific amount of time, 6 months would probably be 6 or 7 months, so that we could kind of get this to the ZBA and then on, and then back to the ELOC and the board. I think we'd have to kind of move along, but I don't think that we need to dally.
Yeah, we want to have it done before the 12 months is up.
Yes, sir.
So we have a deadline. Yeah, it'd be great if we could get it to the full board in the fall before the holidays. A little Christmas present for people.
The one concern I have is, as of yet, we don't have a map of the Muhammad Aquifer. And I would think if we're going to put zoning regulations, well, not to prejudge, maybe the task force or ELUC would recommend that it's just the entire county.
I think that's how we're leaning.
Because, there's at least 4 villages in the southern part of the county that have their own wells. They're going to be concerned about the possibility of sequestration anywhere near their wells. So, yeah, I think that's the right way to think about it. So maybe having a map of the aquifer is not a critical thing, but if it is critical, we don't expect a map until, I believe, the end of '25.
If I could speak to that, there's several ways that we can approach this. One is by having a physical map with lines drawn, and that's one way of handling it. The other way is by definition, and I'll say that we can state, that a particular boundary with a certain border added, when the map, that mapping is finally done, and to address Aaron's point, and one that's been of concern to me all along, is the smaller glacial aquifers that we don't have as much information about, but we know exist within the confines of the Bloomington Moraine, and information about where groundwater is drawn for principal use as a principal water source in areas, and where surface water supply is somewhat known on a regional level by some of these scientific surveys and the Illinois EPA, which has oversight over drinking water. So we have a certain amount of information. We're not without information, and that some of this might be adjusted as new information is found, but we can certainly define that, or the task force can define that.
Right, while we're taking great minutes, I want the minutes to reflect just how lucky we are that ELOC has Chris Store on it during this time. So it just comes from your pores. It exudes from you. It's wonderful to listen to you talk about this. So And I insist that you are one of the members of this task force, if not the chair of it, Chris. That's good. That's helpful. That helps us put some definition to things. So, is there other things that we could do tonight that we think we could have ready besides forming, the outline of this task force so that we can have the board vote on it in March? I think if we let Dr. Storr loose, a whirlwind will take place, and we'll have a lot to go. And thank you in advance for all that work, Chris. So, any other discussion on this? Any other input from people, or do we think we have an approach now? Good? We're good? And you understand? All right. And we thank you in advance, because it's going to be work. So, all right, very good. Moving on to new business items to be recommended to the county board. These are always fun. Resolution A, resolution approving intergovernmental cost-sharing agreement between the County of Champaign and the City of Champaign, the City of Urbana, the Village of Savoy for residential electronic collection events and a household hazardous waste collection event in 2025. I'd entertain a motion first. Jen and Jamal. Discussion. John, anything to add?
I had one request from the city of Urbana on table 4.1, simply to indicate which event is happening on these dates. So that's really a non-substantive change, but it's going to look different when it goes to the county board.
Are we happy with that? I think we can all adapt to that. Are you getting more comfortable with it now that Susan's not helping you do it?
No,
Okay.
no, I miss Susan every day, but
Yeah, I think we
Not
missed it a
today.
lot. All right. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? All right. With that change, that passes. B, resolution approving agreement between Champaign County, Parkland College, and A-Team Recyclers regarding the residential electronic collections on May 17, 2025, and October 11th, 2025. A motion? Motion by JJ. Second by, I don't think you can do that, Chris. You can't just point to somebody else. Ma, well, thank you. Any discussion on this? These are well attended, and I think last year was pretty good and super organized. So even though you don't have Susan helping, they go very well, John. JJ?
John, if I'm remembering correctly, by scheduling all these out in 2025, we deplete our funds in that fund, right? Okay, that's what I thought.
I was going to mention that because I don't want you to overlook that. Won't be as depleted as it would have been without the increase in fees, but it will be depleted.
Okay, so we have to come up with a plan for that for 2026. And we can't hope that Susan works her miracles off-site there. So, all right, any other input on that? All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? All right. C, resolution approving Champaign County opt-in form to Illinois EPA to participate in the manufacturer e-waste program in 2026. A motion? Motion by Aaron, a second by, point at Chris. Raise your hand, Chris. By Dr. Storr. That would be Aaron and Dr. Storr for the record. Any discussion on this, John? Anything to add?
No, just that simply because we're opting in, if we decide not to do it in 26, that's fine, but we need to let them know if we're interested. So.
All right, and hope we have some funds. All right, any other discussion, questions? All those in favor? Oh, wait, okay.
I do have one question. So, again, I'm new, so I'm just going to catch up to everybody. On page 26, it says on or about October 17th. So we've previously been doing these twice a year. We only, in 26, we're only going to do it once a year, or because it only says on or about October?
Well, there's another event. There's another
Okay,
event
then we've
mentioned on
already-
25.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And No, we haven't planned for this yet. This is the crazy thing about this opt-in. We're pretending like we have this all planned out. We haven't made any reservations for 26. We don't even know, but this is our best guess.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, John. Anything else? All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? All right, we have that. D, resolution authorizing agreement to rent the State Farm Center parking lot for an Illinois Environmental Protection Agency sponsored one-day household hazardous waste collection event on August 9th, 2025. A motion? And JJ. We got Jamala and JJ. Any questions, discussion? John?
The State Farm Center has increased their rates again this year, 2 years in a row. But luckily, this day was available. And, there's this concern that we may schedule an event there some year and then find out that we can't do it. But right now, they're a reliable partner, and they're very welcoming as long as we agree to increase fees every year. So it's working well, but the sooner we have a more reliable location to do these things, we'll be much better off.
How does Parkland feel about doing household hazardous waste? Why do we not do it at Parkland and do it at State Farm for that, but e-waste at Parkland?
We have someone here tonight who may know something about that. I myself have never asked Parkland about it. I don't know why we never did it, but I just don't know. And I haven't asked because I haven't had to ask.
I'd like to call Susan Monty to the microphone. If she's willing, thank you. All right, well, say that into the mic, and it was a little cracky before, so let's hope it works better this time.
I did ask Parkland College administration about hosting one-day HHW collection event in their parking lot, and they were not willing to do that, just given the wear and concerns about spills and liability and a whole host of things. They just didn't want to entertain that event.
Susan, do you know if they understood that, the contractor lays down a sheet of plastic and everything happens on that plastic and that plastic is removed at the end of the day? And they're really pretty meticulous about the parking lot looking the same after they leave.
I would encourage you to broach the question again. There's different deans in there, so you can get maybe a different result.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Susan. Maybe hang out there, since, if you don't mind. Any other discussion on D? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? All right, we have that. Item E, authorize the use of the Champaign County seal or logo in support of SB 1394, establishing a statutory requirement for household hazardous waste extended producer responsibility. First a motion from Jen and from Dr. Stohr. Discussion, questions for Susan? Susan's here. She's a resource. Let's get everything we can while she's in the building. Chris?
Could you tell us a bit about this, Miss?
Hi. Okay. Extended producer responsibility. It's a type of product stewardship that's mandatory and required by law. It includes at a minimum the requirement that a manufacturer or producer that is doing retail business in Illinois participate in a product stewardship organization and provide funding for that program to collect that product at the end of its useful life cycle. So this has been a very successful model for consumer electronics, as I mentioned. For paint, took a couple of years to get that passed. and portable batteries just last year. And these programs are administered by the Illinois EPA, but financed by the manufacturers who are regulated and work with a product, what is it called, a PRO, product, stands for something, something organization that operates these programs. So for example, for the portable battery program, that would be Call to Recycle. For the paint, it's Paint Care. For the consumer electronics, it's another company that I cannot remember the name of, but yeah, it's all organized, and it shifts. The two benefits of extended producer responsibility types of programs are they shift financial and management responsibility away from government and upstream to the manufacturer and away from the public sector, and that's just a better model. It provides incentives to the manufacturer to design their products and packaging so that they're not problematic, and that reduces their cost for the program, and it's better overall. So for HHW, for household hazardous waste, the convenience standard would be remarkable. For example, at least one collection site that is a permanent collection site for covered products within a 15-mile radius for at least 60% of the state residents. And that's just amazing to think about. So this is a great movement. I always like to say I never thought I would live to see the day that this was being introduced. So I'm glad to be alive to see this. I'm very excited about the possibility that more counties will sign on. I'm going to be checking with all East Central Illinois counties. So I hope you're agreeable to supporting this by indicating your county seal and logo along with the others so far, Cook County, Lake County. I know Will County and DuPage County are in the process of getting their permission to get their seal on this fact sheet. So it's just a process of getting support and hopefully pushing this through.
Thank you, Susan. And like I said to Dr. Stowe, we really appreciate your expertise on this. And I mean, years of effort. And yeah, this is really incredible to see this is something that's actually happening. That, and, the other project that you're involved with, that it will be wonderful to have when it's open. I hope I'm still living in the country when it does. Any questions for Susan while we have her presence? Aaron?
This isn't for Susan, but I'm just thinking, and no problem, you mentioned seal or logo. Since we have both now, I would think probably seal in this case would probably be the more appropriate, and since it's more the legal, and I guess you could say it kind of has the more weight behind it instead of the logo, which is just add a logo.
It's also visually easier. So, JJ?
Susan, I actually have a question for you. Reading through the handout that we have here, I don't see much that changes for consumers, but is there anything that you could address that people might notice at home? Anything that it would change for them on how things work?
Yes, I don't know exactly how it will change. There will be a lot more resources for education and outreach available to inform consumers about how to handle the product. A big thing is there will be more options and more convenience and less cost to local governments.
Thank you. Other questions? Thank you, Susan. Anything to add while you have the floor?
Well, I don't consider myself an expert on this. I'm so busy with other kind of things, but this is so wonderful that this has come forward this year, and hope it makes it a bit further than it might. Might take more than 1 year.
All right. Thank you again. Then without further ado, all those in favor? Aye. And that is with the official seal. So let's circle seal on that and make sure that the board knows that we mean the seal. Thank you. All right, that wraps up all of our action items for the board. We don't have any monthly reports. I don't have a chair's report. Designation of items to be placed on the consent agenda are 8A, B, C, D, and E. And unless there's other things for the board, I would call this meeting adjourned at 10 minutes after 7 p.m. Thank you all for coming. Thank you very much.